Good evening in Rwanda, Europe, and Israel, and welcome whatever time of day or night it is for those joining us from the rest of the world. I'm Yael Danieli, founder and executive director of the International Center for the Study, Prevention, and Treatment of Multigenerational Legacies of Trauma, ICMGLT for short. Thank you for joining us. This International Center for Multigenerational Legacies of Trauma webinar is held in collaboration with Foundation Rwanda, on whose advisory council I've been proud to serve since its inception. Thank you, Lilian, for your help. We named the webinar Rwanda II, as it is the second webinar we hold this year, Kwibuka or Remember 28, in observance of Rwanda's official 100 days of mourning, which follows 7 April, the International Day of Reflection on the 1994 genocide against the Tutsi in Rwanda. Between 6 April and 15 July, in just 100 days, in 1994, about 800,000 people were slaughtered by ethnic Hutu extremists who target members of the minority Tutsi community, as well as their political opponents, irrespective of their ethnic origins. The Rwanda I webinar, which you can find on our website, focused on the challenges of parenting after genocide. Today's Rwanda II webinar is comprised of and focuses on children after the genocide, primarily on children born after the genocide. We are challenged yet again to somehow hold the promise of never again without giving into despair, and to do so focusing on the most innocent among the vulnerable, the children. In ICMGLT style, based on multiple expertise and differing life experiences, today's international participants will discuss orphan child head of households, children born of rape, and children born after the genocide who would have to incorporate such difficult knowledge in their families, schools, and society's history. Your moderator, me, I am a clinical psychologist, victimologist, and traumatologist who has devoted much of her career to studying, treating, and preventing multi-generational impacts of massive trauma, to victims' rights, and to reparative justice. Our first presenter, Joseph Nshimiyimana, was born in January 1988 in southern province, Nyaruguru District. Joseph is the sole survivor of the 1994 genocide against the Tutsi of a family with 6 children. Having gone through a difficult time following the genocide, after primary school, Joseph became a head of a household of 3 and felt that it made him a strong person. Joseph earned a bachelor's degree in clinical psychology and is currently working in AVEGA as district councilor in Gisagara District. Our second presenter, Chantal Mudahogora, is also a survivor of the 1994 genocide against the Tutsi, who lived in Canada for 24 years and currently works in Rwanda as well. with extensive and complex national and international professional experience in mental health. Chantal is a registered professional counselor with a master's degree in clinical counseling, who received several awards for her community engagement. A consultant to Foundation Rwanda, Ms. Mudahogora recently co-authored a study on intergenerational transmission of trauma to offspring of Tutsi genocide survivors, and is a proud mother of 3 young adults. Our third presenter is Jeanette Kawera. Kajet, as she prefers to be called, is a passionate Rwandan professional journalist who graduated from Yala, a Women International Journalism Academy, is currently working for the New Times Rwanda. She earned an advanced diploma, majoring in hospitality management and leadership from Aquila Institute for Women. She holds the 2021 Humanitarian Award winner in the Consumer Choice Awards for her quote, fight against period poverty campaign, and the 2022 Excellent Service Award from Barista for Better. She and her twin sister are the youngest of 4 girls raised by a single mother. Kazet is a Foundation Rwanda youth ambassador who always fights for improvements in its community. Last but not least, Mutea Maria Rachel was born in August 2000 in Huye District, South Province, a first of 4 children of the same parents. She is a clinical psychology student at the University of Rwanda. From 2014, she was a representative of the mental health club in Group Scolaire Mère de Verbe Kibeho, where she attended secondary school. Since then, she has been serving as a volunteer in the Mental Health Dignity Foundation. Following in her mother's footsteps, both professionally and personally, Rachel has been most generously helpful in ensuring the excellence of this panel. We have about an hour and a half for the webinar, though we have been known to run over time. Each speaker will present for about 12 minutes. Following an interchange among us, I will open the floor to questions or brief comments from the virtual audience. Panelists will then conclude with last words, and I will conclude by announcing our future webinars. Please use the chat function, and we'll do our best to respond to as many as we can. Feel free to direct your questions to the particular panelist or the full panel. I give the floor to Joseph Nshimiyimana. Joseph. Please unmute.
Yes, please. Hello, everyone. I'm Nshimiyimana Joseph, the genocide survivors against the Tutsi. I'm gonna share what I have been prepared for knowing.
Joseph, do you want to share your screen? Or maybe,
Yes,
probably you can share the screen?
Yes, on screen.
Okay. Excellent, excellent. Thank you, Joseph. Please, the floor is yours. We are very eager to hear you. And Rabbi, maybe you can help. Go ahead, Joseph.
Yes, please. Intergenerational legacy of the 1994 genocide against the Tutsi in Rwanda. Various studies that discuss the implication on the 1994 genocide against the Tutsi, according to the United Nations Children's Fund in 1996. Due to the 1994 genocide against the Tutsi, armed conflicts have devastated entire society and left millions of children disabled, homeless, orphaned, or separated from their parents. According to Lola, in 2015, thousands of orphanage survivors were exposed to the extraordinary severe form of violence, and these children took on extra responsibility of caring other children in their respective families. Lola also found that there is low social support, high level of poverty, and high rate of PTSD and distress symptoms among orphan survivors. Lower educational attainment predicted PTSD symptoms and partially mediated the association between exposure to genocide, violence, and PTSD. Distress was predicted by lack of social support and witnessing family members harmed during the genocide. According to Shah Albert's 2006, due to genocide against the Tutsi in Rwanda, a lot of children lost most, if not all, of their family members and took on the responsibility of caring and providing for other children survivors. According to the United Nations Children's Fund in 2003, 7 years after the genocide, it was estimated that 37% of households in Rwanda were headed by children, a higher rate than any country in sub-Saharan Africa and possibly the world. According to the research of Nyaruguru in 2012, post-traumatic stress disorder diagnosis in orphanage survivors in Rwanda vary from 29% to 79%, whereby those who were between the age of 11 and 20 during the genocide being at the highest risk for PTSD. According to Boris, in 2008, very nearly half of youth head of households have been reported to meet the clinical support for depression. According to Akresh and the work in 2008, researchers have found that orphans in Rwanda had worse education outcomes than their non-orphaned peers, independent of the genocide experience. Let us go to personal history. This is my personal history. No one can tell a story better than the one who lived it. After the genocide against the Tutsi of the 1994, I was the sole survivor of a family with parents and 6 children. I went through a difficult time where I became a head of household. Moreover, I was responsible of my 3 relatives that I had to take care of. At that time, I faced different problems such as lack of school fees, school material, food, school uniform, sometimes dropouts. That caused me to be a bad effect. That caused me to a bad effect in everyday life. But all those responsibilities made me a strong person. I earned bachelor's degree in clinical psychology, and I'm working in AVEGA as district counselor in Gisagara District. And I plan to continue to help especially vulnerable people through counseling. Personal experience in secondary school and at university. After encountering with many problems, I have got support from local government through parish. Genocide Survivors Assistance Fund, which paid my school fees at the secondary school and continued to support me until the university by giving me bursary. At school, I joined in the Irish Association of Student Survivors of Genocide. In the Irish, we had father, mother, and children, where I became father of 22 students who didn't have their parents. And that gave me the experience of being a head of household. It is really complicated to look after others, yet you also need someone to look after you. Unfortunately, me as a child who took responsibility to take care of relatives was exposed to various obstacles that hindered my development. There are a lot of difficulties everyone can expect as effect of this early responsibility. Due to this, one may think of psychological, physical, and sociological effects. Challenge of orphan head of household after the 1994 genocide against the Tutsi in school and community. Many problems are academic and socio-economic problems. Some of those problems genocide survivors face in their daily lives are trauma and PTSD. Those problems led to depression, lack of confidence, drug abuse, financial problem, lack of financial support to solve their daily problem in order to get their needs, like food and clothes, school materials, school fees. Some are homeless, lack of emotional support, parents who provide care and assisting children in their activity. As a parent in the Irish, we had the responsibility of solving those problems by providing social and emotional support to those orphans, by creating families where orphans have parents who assist and provide social, financial, and emotional support like caring, loving, and provide advice to keep children safe and feel comfortable in the family and help him to get his needs and to achieve his goal by directing him or her how she should behave. In the family Irish, we provide social and emotional support. We fight genocide ideology and ensure that students overcome trauma, homelessness, and the financial problem. We encourage our children and family to be the best in life by striving for a better future. Thank you for listening.
Thank you very much, Joseph.
Thank you too.
For a comprehensive research and personal presentation that I know how much it took out of you to do. We appreciate very much your help in teaching us and in shining light on these on this very painful personal and societal problem. There are many people today around the world who can learn a great deal from the successes and the challenges that you were looking at. Thank you very much, Joseph.
Thank you.
Chantal, you will shine light on yet another painful group of children. Thank you, Chantal. Go ahead.
Thank you, Dr. Danieli, and thank you, everyone. Thank you, organizers. I was given 12 minutes. It's always hard to talk about history in 12 minutes. I will try my best, and let me go straight to share my screen and see how I can do technical. I think you can see it. Can you see it?
Yes, thank you. It's excellent.
Let me do a slideshow. So I'm not going to go through introduction because Dr. Danieli done better than I could ever did it.
Oh, well,
so let's go. You even pronounced my name right, so. It's never easy to talk after these young generations. Joseph, thank you so much for your story. Thank you for accepting sharing. I know it is how difficult it could be, but thank you for sharing the knowledge also to the people who don't understand the situation in Rwanda and what being a household child means. So thank you so much, and for other panelists as well. So let's go straight to the presentation. So I started with a word of knowing what is PTSD, because sometimes we hear trauma, we don't even know what it is. I decided to use symptoms, some of the symptoms, not all, just for people they can connect for the topic we are talking about. So I highlighted, the list is not exhaustive obviously, but I highlighted fear and anxiety, re-experiencing, that's when we have triggers, and physical arousal, sleep disturbance, easily started, avoidance, difficulty concentrating, anger and sadness, and so on and so forth. And what trauma is about, it's a normal reaction to abnormal event. So that means that your brain will...
Chantal, are you moving your slides, or because we are on the first one?
Oh, it did not move? So you can see it moving? No?
We see only the first slide.
Okay.
No, maybe take it out of slideshow.
Yeah.
And then just do it like that, and then click on 1, 2 as you go. 1, 2, 3, 4, etc.
Yeah, that's what I'm gonna do.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. Oh. Thank you so much.
So now you can see it?
Yes.
Okay, cool. So yeah, as I said, it's a normal reaction to abnormal events. So as we know, when you go through a traumatic event, your brain will register an alarm system. And then when you are exposed to something similar to that event, your brain will recall, it will bring back the triggers. So that's what abnormal events means. So moving forward, let's talk a little bit about common symptoms, not going into details again because of the time. So the clinicians have reported strong association between health problems and psychosocial factors. So some other symptoms may, when you have PTSD, some other symptoms may include depression, often paired with anxiety, dissociation, disconnection, detachment. We see this a lot in genocide survivors because the pain is way too heavy. Their defensive mechanisms will be to detach or avoid. So they detach themselves from the situation. Lots of flashbacks, nightmares, intrusive thoughts, sleeping difficulties, body memories, when your body will just react without even you noticing or thinking about it, or even connect with why it is reacting. And this happens a lot with a transgenerational trauma, because most of the time, younger generation, their brain will register information that they don't have access to. So their body will be responding to the events that they can't even recognize. Emotional numbness, in our culture, in the Rwandan culture, emotional numbness is quite often because people cope by suppressing emotions. So therefore, your emotions get completely numb. Sometimes you see change in behaviors. Substance use disorders, I think Joseph has alluded to those. Suicidal thoughts, psychosomatization, comorbidities, diseases, panic attacks, psychosis, and so on. So those are only few symptoms, not all. What kind of challenges do we see in trauma? Insidious trauma from the past. This is very prevalent in Rwanda because, as you know, our history, the killings started back in the 1960s. So, and it went up 66, 63, 66, whatever, and then it goes up to the 94. So the insidious trauma is very prevalent in Rwanda because people will be reminiscing on the past. Also, even my generation, we are born from the parents who are survivors of 1960s.
Right.
Therefore,
Right.
we have been accumulating trauma transmission from our parents. Now we are first-hand survivors. We have a double trauma, if I may say that way. And if my children will have a triple trauma, if I may say that way. So it has been a passed on collective trauma from years, for 3 decades even. So the insidious trauma is very, very prevalent in our community. Cultural influence also is a challenge. Sometimes we don't understand what is mental health because culturally it's not something which has been around for many years. Lack of awareness is also a big thing. Stigmatization too, because in our culture, for example, what you talk about when you talk about mental health, people jump automatically to psychosis. So they think you're going crazy. So nothing in between. Either you are well or you are crazy. So that stigma and lack of awareness is also very prevalent. Confusion between psychology and spirituality, also cultural and other things, beliefs and other things. Scarcity of services. As much as now in Rwanda, we are trying to actually diversify services, and the government has been trying to even decentralize services to the very grassroots level, but we still have a long way to go. Now, next. So let me give you a little bit of background of Foundation Rwanda. I'm not gonna go into too much of details. I couldn't find a better image to describe what happened with the creation of Foundation Rwanda. It says, it's a quote by Donna Brazil. It says, "Why you? Because there's no one better." And you is you on this line, and you of everyone as a collective, as a community. Why now? Because tomorrow isn't soon enough. So I couldn't find a better quote to express what happened at the foundation of Foundation Rwanda. So we have 2 co-founders. The story starts in 2005. And in 2005, American gentleman came to Rwanda. His name is Jonathan Porgovenik. I think I pronounced it well. So he came to Rwanda completely for a different agenda. He was a photojournalist. However, though, he interviewed these women who were impregnated during the genocide and bore children from perpetrators. So he was caught deeply attached by the stories of these women. So when he returned to America, he continued to think about this situation. So in 2 years later, in 2007, he came back to Rwanda, and with the sole purpose to meet these women, interview them, and make stories of those women. So he interviewed 35 women at the time in 2007. And when he came back, he did not come back himself. He came back with Jules Sher. She is now the co-founder of Foundation Rwanda, together with Jonathan. So they came back in 2007. They collected stories and pictures, and they went back to America. Actually, Jonathan authored The Intended Consequences. And this story caught eyes of many Americans, to the point where when the story was actually featured in the newspapers, especially Newsweek magazine, some of the pictures were selected, and they made it to the UN exhibition while they were doing at the headquarters, at the UN headquarters, while they were having the 25th anniversary of HIV/AIDS. So that's how Jonathan and Jules went to the exhibition. They were able to earn some money from being selected, the pictures being selected, and that's how they started Foundation in Rwanda. Foundation Rwanda now, it's registered in New York, but I believe, or maybe in Washington, DC, and I believe it has an office in San Francisco. So that's Foundation Rwanda. I'll be coming back to the challenges and achievements a little later. But I just wanted to thank these two Americans who went somewhere in Central Africa, Central East Africa, no connection whatsoever, but they were touched by the people they met. Now they are making a big impact to the well-being of these women and their children. Back in 2005, these children were very young. Now they are young adults. So they gave an opportunity to these young girls and young boys to thrive through all the challenges and through all the difficulties they had to go through. So I will come back to the achievements and challenges later on. Now I'm going to talk about a little bit about children and how the genocide impacted children in particularly. So yeah, I know I have to rush. So genocide did not spare kids. Kids were killed as well. These two children are my personal niece and nephew. They were killed during the genocide. And also children were impacted by the abandonment. They were left on their own to survive. So they suffered a lot of psychological and physical consequences. So the children head of families, that's what Joseph spoke about. I'm not going to come back to it. And there's also these children who are born from the perpetrators, because one of the weapons during the genocide, it was rape. So after that, some experienced mass rape, others experienced transmission of diseases. So after the genocide, we counted about an estimation of 2,000 to 10,000 children whose mothers were raped during the genocide. They were, at the time, the children are not were not included, or they were seen as the children of perpetrators, to the point where they were given names. They will call them enfants de mauvais souvenir, or other, the little killers, or other names they gave to them. We will have to hear from testimonies shortly after I am done with my presentation. And there was a book about it. There was a book of children of killers that people can consult with. So trauma transmission, let's talk about trauma transmission, which is our topic today. So there are a few models of transmission. One, like, how does transmission occur? That's what we want to look into. So there are many ways that the transmission can occur, but what we often see as clinicians is that there's a transmission of early relations between mother and child, between parents, between siblings. So the transmission happens already early on. And it also happens through socialization. When you grow up and people are telling you what happened to you, who you are, and what is your story. And also there's a component of biological transmission. So what is being transmitted? Self-perception, the way you perceive yourself as a child of a survivor, as a child born from the rape, as a household child, as an orphan. So the way you perceive yourself also, it's a model of transmission. Emotions, the emotions gets transmitted. If your parents are always sad, it's obviously clear that you're gonna be sad as well. So you become the reservoir of your parents. Interpersonal functioning, that too will be transmitted. So now the achievements I was talking about, I'm gonna go through it. There's a lot which has been achieved, but I'm going just to give you a highlight of it. The achievement of Foundation Rwanda, through the programs, one big program we have, it's education. The other one is health coverage. So under education, we have sub programs. We have education through high school and universities. We have vocational trainings, and we have youth camps. So within high school, over 830,000, they finished high school under Foundation Rwanda care, paying school fees, giving them money for other needs. And I think some of the speakers can testify that. And over 350, they finished vocational trainings. And also we've been holding youth camps every year, except that last couple of years, COVID has been a challenge to have a youth camp. So healthcare. In healthcare, we pay mutuelle de santé for some of beneficiaries, but also over 650 beneficiaries had received counseling support. And we have 12 women who were treated from a fistula. I'm mentioning this because most of the women who were raped during the genocide, they were also tortured even in their private areas. So they had a lot of wounds in that area. So the genocide ended with a lot of fistula cases. And in Rwanda, it was a new situation that no one knew what it was. But now they have been treated, and other women have been treated as well. So mutuelle de santé, advocacy to the services users as well. Mutuelle de santé is the coverage for all. So there's a small portion that the population has to pay, but the government will top up the other money. So we are almost done here. So the challenge is we have issues with the women, mothers who haven't been able to disclose their true stories to their children. Those who are able to access support groups, they have been okay disclosing. They have learned how to create a narrative and how to transmit that memory to their children. But many of the genocide survivors haven't been able to open up to their children to tell them what exactly has happened. These children of genocide survivors through rape, they have a strong identity crisis. You can only imagine when you are told that your mother's family have been killed by your father's family. It's a complex situation to be in, and to create a lot of identity crisis. So mental health within these children through transgenerational trauma is high. These kids have concerns through commemoration period, because sometimes they don't know where to go. They think, should I go to support my mom who lost people in the genocide? If I go, people will see me as a child of perpetrator and they won't actually accept me. So they have this dilemma of knowing what to do during the commemoration period. So last, what I wanted to talk about is the current situation just a little bit. We went from rubble to renaissance. As much as we still have a lot of needs within survivors, but Rwanda has done a tremendous job of rebuilding. As much as we rebuild unity and reconciliation and people, but they have been rebuilding the country. And most of the time, my colleagues in Canada and Western world friends, they ask me, how did it happen? How did Rwanda turn into from the rebels to Renaissance country? And what I always tell people, not Rwandans are resilient people by culturally and history and our background and everything else. So we are known to be resilient people. Also, we used homegrown solutions. Because at the end of the genocide, no one knew what to do to rebuild this country. The country was destroyed. The bodies were scattered everywhere in the country. There were a lot of cleanup to be done, but also it was not possible or easy to rebuild. So through homegrown solutions, through restorative justice, through building like community walks, which happens every month, it happened. And it is still happening because Rwanda is not where it wants to go. It wants to be. So we also did something called for collective forgetting. As you know, the genocide in Rwanda is unique in a way that people killed their own. In the past history, the genocides which happened in the past, it was a nation against a nation or a race against a race. But in Rwanda, it's the one unique genocide where people killed their own. So it makes it difficult because you have to live with your perpetrators in the same village or their families. So, and you know who killed what, who killed who. So it has been complex. So we used what we call collective forgetting, not because we forget, but because we chose to forget so we can move on. So the selective remembering is a recognition that not all the past forms of knowledge and not all experiences are beneficial for present and future life. So we always say, remember, rebuild, and renew. Yes, we can remember, but don't forget, don't stay there. You remember by getting up and rebuild and renew. So that collective trauma has been actually something which has been around for some time. Some philosophers have spoke about it, the active forgetting and selective remembering. You can read about it, it's out there. But Rwanda chose to rebuild rather than just stay back and be miserable. So I think I'm done. Thank you very much for your attention.
Thank you, Chantal, particularly for putting light on the insidious trauma and on the role of society and culture, the challenging and the positive roles that we have to always look at and remember. Kajette, my dear, the floor is yours.
Thank you so much. Hello, everyone, to all the attenders, and it's such a great pleasure to be here today. And I'd like to start by thanking the organizer. Thanks for just thinking about this. Thanks for organizing this kind of webinar. It really is such a powerful one. And to all the participants, I'd like to just excuse myself. If you just listen to me or hear me talking about women or mothers, please bear with me. Since I was, as Yael said, I was raised by a single mother, a survivor, and so I know the power of women. And our mother, or those women and all the genocide survivors in general, they were the heroes that we can't even find a way to talk about. They are the heroes that you have never seen. Like, imagine like being in a life, losing all your relatives, all the siblings, the parents, and still manage to raise all the kids that you just get and raise them as well, as much, as better as you could. So that's what I call the power of women, especially the women who survived the 1994 genocide against the Tutsi. However, it was so hard for them to just like be the parents, as in this webinar theme, it is like the challenges of parenting after the genocide. It was so hard to be the parent, to be the better parent that they could be, with all the broken heart, with all the wound and the trauma that they had, to the extent that at some point they had to transfer the trauma to us, to the kids, unwillingly. But again, as Chantal said it, there is lots of like so many ways of transferring the trauma. So the trauma has been transferred through the breast like feed, like we're like breastfeeding the trauma, we're like being transferred the trauma that we didn't know about. As Chantal said, at some point, we the kids who were born after the 1994 genocide against the Tutsi, we'd be like collecting some memories that we have never seen, like collecting the images that we have never seen, and be like having that kind of issue of like connecting the dots, like thinking, how was it, like how did it look like? And by that, we end up like receiving or acquiring the trauma that we didn't know that it exists. It was so hard for our parents to just raise the kids whom they will not tell their fathers, whom they will not tell their relatives. Like, we all know that every kid wants to know who their father is, their auntie, uncle, cousins, grandpa. And for us, we'll be asking our mothers and our parents, like, where are all those relatives? And they don't have any answer apart from saying at the memorial sites. So like having to visit all your relatives at the memorial site, and at some point the parents were like, when we were young, the parents can't like promise a kid to go there all alone. They'd be like, what are you going to do there? Yet when the genocide happened, we're not there. So who are you going to commemorate? Yet you don't know them. I prefer to call them unmet relatives. And yes, they are unmet relatives that you have never seen. there are those kids who were born after the genocide from the genocide survivors. There are also the kids who were born from the rape. Imagine like being a survivor, but still having like being raped by the genocide perpetrators, some of them who killed your relatives. And again, you end up getting pregnant and you would just have to just raise the kid of a genocide perpetrator. That's such a hard thing to just live in. And the kids, it was like, I can say that it's not such an easy thing, since the kid is not at all welcomed at the mother's side. The kid is not welcomed at the father's side, and she or he is just there in the dilemma, as like Chantal mentioned, that like the kids be like, where should I go, to my mother's side or to my father's side? Some don't even know their father, since some women were raped by like multiple men, and some they just not only impregnate them, but also like infect them with some illness. To this extent, they are still fighting against. And as the UN report like showed, more than 200 children were born from rape. And special thanks to the Foundation Rwanda that like listened to that kind of sadness, to the sorrow, and helped those mother and those children born from rape who were not welcomed at any side at all. So apart from that, like we, the children who were born after the genocide, we were still struggling to know. We really have that kind of curiosity to know more. We want to know like our mother's relatives. We want to know what they like, they used to like we want to know our father's relatives, like how did they look like? But again, we can't get that. However, as the kids or the generation which is still rising, we don't want that kind of history to just be at our backbone, to just be the only like definition of us. We want to just rise and shine and just elevate and make sure that genocide never again. It's like there is no other name to it. It's the 1994 genocide against the Tutsi, and we would like, it really kills us inside when we listen to someone saying otherwise, saying like there was no genocide against the Tutsi, there was nothing as such, since it's the 1994 genocide against the Tutsi, and we are the living example that the incident, that the tragedy happened. Please do not, to everyone who is listening to this, and to everyone who you are going to share this with, do not name it otherwise. It's the 1994 genocide against the Tutsi, and we are trying our level best so that this will never happen again. Like as Yael said, I am a passionate and a professional journalist. And the reason to why I decided to become a journalist, I want to say this clearly, until the lion learn to write or to speak, the hunters will tell their story either way to the level they want. So we are Rwandese. Like we are the young generation. We're not there when the genocide happened. We were born after the genocide. But again, we still have the trace that we have the mother who survives. We have some neighbors who survived. We have some people who can tell us the story. And then from our very own like experience, from the life that we lived, we can write our very own story, not waiting for someone from outside of Rwanda coming in to just write the story of Rwanda. How can you just write and tell the Rwandan story, yet you are not a Rwandese, yet you didn't experience that life? We are the owner of the story. We own our very story. We own our very own story, and we want to tell our story to the world, so that not only in Rwanda, but also to the entire world, genocide will never happen again. And we do promise you that this will never happen. And we'll do our level best to just build the better Rwanda, to leave the world as a better place than how we found it. You didn't, like for our parents, for our whoever, people who just made any kind of like positive thing in our life, will make you proud. The young generation will never be defined by the trauma. The young generation will never be into such kind of life of just being like, I don't know my mother's relatives, I don't know my identity, I don't know. We aim at being the best. We aim at like making you proud, to the level that we be like we didn't lay stones. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Kazet. It's you actually fulfill Chantal's point, not to pathologize the reactions to trauma. That trauma is a normal reaction. Our reactions to trauma are normal to extraordinary events. Our hope remains. I think it's very interesting that both Jonathan and Chantal, your co-authors of your article, and myself are Israelis. It's not a surprise that our histories teach us. Are steeped in suffering, but also teach us about survival and commitment to life, and commitment to the young, and commitment to the future. So I remember that was my feeling very much so when I first came to Rwanda as well. So you're reviving that feeling. It's really important, however, to remind us, yes, the power and the importance of journalism, right? And telling stories, not only psychologists, but journalists. In addition, the importance of society reflecting on its stereotypes. Because not only in Rwanda, I have worked in other countries where rape was used as a weapon of war. The society creates an additional trauma to the rape by maintaining the stigma against rape, as if the victim and the children of the victim are the guilty ones. I think it's extremely important to remember that they're innocent, and to give all the compassion that they deserve, rather than hang on to old stereotypes and stigmas. And do what the perpetrators wanted, which is to contaminate the next generation. So let's just live with those thoughts as well. While Foundation Rwanda has collaborated so beautifully with this webinar, there are so many other organizations we mentioned that are all part of our large family of living with this. Rachel, please take on the screen. I think she's also the youngest.
Thank you very much, dear Dr. Yael. I hope that you're seeing my presentation.
If you can make it a little larger, it will help. The font, can you enlarge the font? Perfect.
Like this?
I hope everybody sees well. I think those I can see say yes. Go ahead. Thank you, dear. Oops.
Yes.
That's it. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you very much again, dear Dr. Yael, for this opportunity. While talking about this intergenerational legacy of the 1994 genocide against the Tutsi, let me just begin by my personal experience regarding this 1994 genocide against the Tutsi. At that time, I was not there because I was a child who was born in the aftermath of the 1994 genocide against the Tutsi. So I was born not knowing what happened because I was born in 2000, as Dr. Yael mentioned already. However, within my young age, my parents communicated, like in each year in our country, even currently, we are in the 28th commemoration of the 1994 genocide against the Tutsi. So if I remember well, I had 10 or 11 years. So I was kind of growing up and wondering, what is the genocide? I just hear it everywhere. What is genocide? And then I went to my parents and asked them, what is that? And then we always know that you communicate with the children, like basing on the appropriate age of their understanding. So my parents did that and they gave me the appropriate information that I needed at that time. And that was really helpful. That was the first way that I was able to connect with what happened. And the second way was, I'm totally in the primary as well as the secondary school. And within the 1994 genocide commemoration periods, as I told you, each and every year that take place in our country. And like just going here, like in secondary school, you're seeing here my personal example. I hope that you're seeing there. When I was in secondary school, it was my first time that I saw dead bodies of thousands of people who were laid to rest in the nearby memorial to the 1994 mass slaughter. I was scared at that moment and uncomfortable as well as overwhelmed. And I was wondering, how could possibly a person do such a terrible thing of killing the other? Yet he or she knows that the other person is having flesh as you have it, and you still use slaughtering tools such as machete and so many others to kill that person. That person is hurting as you can. And because I personally knew that that is something that I cannot do, I was wondering how a person can do such a terrible thing. And it was really hard for me to understand that, you know. However, now I'm a grown-up girl. I can understand based on what I witness each and every day in memorial sites. But at that moment, when I had 10 years, I was not understanding how possibly a person can do that. In addition, like my personal experience again, one day I heard on Rwanda TV how in Gisagara District during the 1994 genocide against the Tutsi, small children were smashed to death against the walls. At that time, I felt dread and I wanted to weep. Fortunately, because when I was in secondary school, as I'll be mentioning down here, I had an opportunity to be trained by a Mental Health Dignity Foundation that taught us a lot about psychological techniques that are used to help people to settle down, including relaxation exercises. And at that moment, when I was like going to Boston, like weep and yeah, it was too bad at that moment. But because I remembered the relaxation exercises that I studied when I was in secondary school, I just used it and I was able to settle down. At that moment, I used the breathing technique as well as the finger holds. And that was really helpful for me at that moment. So in addition, the way that I was able to connect and be aware of what happened in 1994 genocide against the Tutsi, because I was not there, was within the intervention during the commemoration, because I was a leader of mental health club at my school, Groupe Scolaire Mère du Verbe Tibero. Yeah, when I just go there each year, I was able to hear testimonies of survivors, and so many people were there at that moment who told us what happened, so on and so forth. And then I was able to connect and know what happened when I was not there. And the other way was through, through reading documents related to Rwanda's horrible past, different articles, books, journals that talk about the 1994 genocide against the Tutsi in Rwanda, as well as the training that I got from Mental Health Dignity Foundation, where we particularly explored various key concepts such as conflict, violence, trauma, post-traumatic stress disorder, several relaxation exercises that I already told you that I've used one in order to settle down, and yeah, as treatment, as well as the mediation among conflict parties. Those are some of the topics and the remaining ones that I'm going to highlight down below. And I did not only like help myself to pass through all of those hard times, but I also extended, like, going my peers. And these are the examples of my peers, kind of intervention, what I did and what I heard from them, because the 1994 genocide against the Tutsi, as Kajet already mentioned, did not affect me only. It affected the whole community and all people, all children who were born in the aftermath. So this first example is during the commemoration of the 1994 genocide against the Tutsi, and a girl approached me weeping and overwhelmed by negative emotion after hearing how Tutsi were brutally killed. At that moment, I listened to her actively and helped her using hold technique and finger hold. As I told you, I was a member of mental health club, so we learned more in secondary school. That helped me to help myself first and then help others. And at that moment, it was good because she was able to settle down afterwards. Yeah, and the other example was, I know a student, let me just use T for confidentiality. Yeah, T witnessed the cadaver of a 19-year-old secondary school boy who was killed by perpetrators because they believed he informed the authorities of the perpetrator's whereabouts. They just hanged him on a rooftop near the school septic tanks, and the body was decomposing starting from the nose. And T told me that at that moment, he was overwhelmed and in complete dread. How could a person do that to a young schoolboy like that? Those are the challenges and the problems that, result to what happened in the 1994 genocide against the Tutsi. And then, because I know that we Rwandans, we are responsible of those intergenerational legacies of the 1994 genocide against the Tutsi, and we are also responsible building our own brighter future. I just did something. I've put place some of the techniques or like some of the means to tackle those challenges faced as a child who was born in the aftermath of the 1994 genocide against the Tutsi. So the category one of what I did to just tackle them was to be a mental health club. As I told you, I was a club representative. I have participated in various trainings offered by Mental Health Dignity Foundation about the interconnection between conflict and trauma through mainly specifically its project named Preventing Transgenerational Trauma and Promoting Self-Care for Rwandan Youth. I also received the nonviolent communication training as well as this clinical supervision and the other ones that I'm going to highlight down below. And within our mental health club, we have also established the Center for Listening, and it was not only that, but we also did role plays on World Mental Health Day celebration in October that take place each year. And we also did psychological intervention during commemoration of the 1994 genocide against the Tutsi at school. And we have also inaugurated the mental health youth clubs in other schools, of course, starting from those which were nearby ours. And the category 2 of what I did to tackle those challenges of the 1994 genocide against the Tutsi is to start what I call the Class Parlay Initiative. This initiative began in June 2021 after taking part in different useful trainings offered by Mental Health Dignity Foundation, such as the psychodiagnosis or screening of post-traumatic stress disorder, the problem-solving skills, the active listening, ethical principles of clinical psychologists, the communication skills, the nonviolent communication, which consists of observation, needs, feelings, and how to carry out requests, and also the prevention and early intervention for couples, the eye movement desensitization approach, relaxation techniques, including the energy field therapy, the progressive muscle relaxation technique, labyrinth, full field technique, mandala, as well as breathing exercises. And considering all the various trainings I participated in within MHDF and the intergenerational legacy of the 1994 genocide against the Tutsi, and in particular, having learned that 28.54% of Rwandan population is post-traumatic stress disorder sufferers, according to Munyandamutsa in 2008, and that 46% of children from families with domestic violence have PTSD, according to Witonze Therese in 2018, I have particularly decided to start a class parallel initiative. And first and foremost, this class parallel initiative was established to deal with the intergenerational legacies of the genocide against the Tutsi that took place in 1994 genocide and young people as the next generation. And when we say the intergenerational legacies, those include conflicts, violence in families, transgenerational trauma, early pregnancies, drug abuse, anxiety, as well as depression. Also, as future clinical psychologists, we need to be equipped with knowledge and capacity to handle those legacies within young people. Moreover, this initiative enabled me to share with others those significant trainings that I have received from Mental Health Dignity Foundation. So some of the topics that we've so far discussed on include the different services offered by clinical psychologists in Rwanda, according to a National Gazette set in 2016, the ethical principles of psychologists and code of conduct, the mental health psychoeducation that usually consists of causes, symptoms, and mental disorders and possible treatments, and the psychoeducation on drug abuse, the differences and similarities among mental health professionals in Rwanda, those include psychiatrists, mental health nurses, and especially clinical psychologists, whom I'm gonna be in the future, and how to deal with sexual dysfunction. And so far, we've now held 6 significant class discussions. And that's about the category 2, and the category 3 consists of mental health awareness in youngsters. And the followings that you're seeing here are the group of youngsters where I was able to deliver in a mental health and like awareness. I was able to deliver that kind of talk. And the first is Mobility Vet School, which consists of 149 teenagers, and Groupe Scolaire Lutira, which consists of 846 young people, as well as Ngoma Parish, which consists of 100 young people. And whenever I go there to the field, I do a mental health psychoeducation, which consists of definition of health, mental health, according to a World Health Organization. And I just use diagrams to illustrate it more. For instance, I just used the present situation diagram, trauma and body reaction, and some other brain illustrations so that children or teenagers or youngsters in general can really understand what I'm just talking about regarding mental health. And moreover, I talk about the causes of mental disorders, signs, symptoms of mental disorders, as well as the treatment methods and key behavior of clinical psychologists as help. Thank you very much for listening. That's the end of my presentation.
Thank you very much, Rachel. We are now, it will take a few minutes for discussion among the panelists. I don't know about our courageous participants and courageous panelists. There's so much pain in the room, but so much hope in the room. And so much incredible attempts at healing. If you really think about it, each one of the participants here is a healer. if be it a psychologist, a journalist, a student of psychology, a head of household, an orphan head of household, a survivor. I take off my hat symbolically to all of you. In the International Center for Traumatic Stress, in the International Center for MultiGenerational Legacies of Trauma, we give what we call the Repairer Awards. Because we believe profoundly that children and descendants of survivors, as you have seen here today, and orphans, whether they're conscious or not, they consider their mission of life to repair the world for their parents, for themselves, and for their own children. And I can full-heartedly say that each one of you deserves it. And each one of you is an inspiration. Now, I'm just wondering if you have questions to each other. You've listened very carefully, I could see. Do you have any questions to each other before we open the floor to questions from the audience? And the audience should know that we can always put you, to ask the question vocally if you would like that. So let us know if that's okay. I see, Chantal, you seem to have an idea there. I can see on your face, please, unmute.
Yes, I actually have a question for Joseph. Joseph, I wonder, he's here.
Yes, yes, he hears you.
You worry, this is you. I wonder, when you are reminiscing in the past right now and thinking of, Rachel, can you mute yourself, please? Yes, thank you. So when you think of what happened when you were a head of household at the age of 6 and being responsible to your young siblings, when you look back, what do you think had helped you to go through this? Because I can only imagine if there's no food in the house and you don't even have a shelter, they can't go to school, you don't have even clothes, you don't feel safe, and yet you're traumatized from being alone with these younger siblings. I was an adult. I was an adult when the genocide happened. So and I still remember how I was suffering, having my 2-year-old son. I can only imagine how you, as a 6-year-old child, being a head of household, it's something I can't comprehend. But if you can put in the understandable words that you can tell me how it really feels when you look back.
Thank you, Chantal, for asking this question. It is very hard to explain it. When I come back to the past, it's very hard. It hurts me very much. But to be head of household, you must think twice and think that you are strong enough. Even you are surrounded with many problems about you, about relatives, about where you are, and you have to be strong. And you know that you are a man. sometimes you think things that is a very more than you, and you know that you have there is no way to solve this problem. But first of all, what I think about is God. Before the genocide against the Tutsi in 1994, I had the parents and the sisters who know God very much. And if they talk to me how to pray, even I was a child, but I know how to pray God and to ask how this problem will be done in front of God. Only God directed me how to do, the way I can behave. It's very hard to explain the life I go through, but the necessary is to know that even there is a problem, there is many ways to solve it through to trust God. If you don't trust God, you will never do anything. When you think that I was a child, it is good. I was a child. But the child won't know what to do. And when you see in the house, there is no food, there is no uniform, there is no clothes. Sometimes you think that sometimes you have the thought of living. I don't know if it's Mudagro presented suicidal thoughts, but sometimes you think about it. And when I drop out the school, I go somewhere and I think, what can I do? What can I do to do something which is important to my relative? Sometimes you forget yourself and you start to see others, how others can live. And it is very hurtful. But I tried to find a job even I was a child. Different job in construction, in hotels, and others in a different family, in order to find how to survive. I don't know how can I explain it, but it's very hard. It is very, very, very hard. Think when you are a child and you think about how to find, sometimes you need someone to care of you. You need the love of parents. And even you know that you get the chance of study, and sometimes to study is very hard when you think that there is no one who care of you, and you think that there is some problem you have to solve yourself. It was very, very hard, and I don't know how can I explain it.
You did. You did very well, Joseph. You did. And that's what I wanted to hear.
Okay.
Yes. Thank you.
I don't know if you understand, but
thank you, Chantal, for asking the
but to show you how hard it is very, very difficult. Thank you for asking this question.
Thank you.
I wonder if anyone else has a question or a comment about other people's presentation. Don't have to, just in case. Okay, I was looking through the comments, and they seem mostly greatly admiring of each one of your contributions and humbled by your courage. I think there's one actual question that just came up from Harold Cudler, who is actually on the board of the center. As I listened to each speaker, and each speaker has spoken beautifully, it seems to me that while all Rwandans are dealing with what can be thought of as single event, different groups of survivors, those who were children then, those who were adults then, the children of rape, the children of those who were not yet born, will each need different support group and a different set of interventions. Would the panelists agree? Who would like to take that on? I knew. Chantal, please unmute.
Thank you, and thanks to Harold. The question is very relevant and it's very important, except that the genocide happened in 1994, not 1996. So it is true. We need support groups, yes. And also we have categories of age groups. Sometimes I put them in 3 categories. Even now as we speak, the genocide survivors' needs have changed. They have shifted. So the needs we had in 1994, 95, 90, even in 2000, 2010, they have shifted. Then we were talking about women being pregnant. We will give them support they need. Now they have young babies, give them support they need. But now these babies are grown up. They are actually founding their own families and having their own children. So they have their own needs. So in those 3 categories, when I look at it, those who were 40s, 50s back in 1994, they're now reaching their 70s and over. They are elders. Those who were in their 30s, they are now almost 60s. So the needs have been changed. Yes, the support group can work, as in we need different set of interventions, but at the same time, sometimes it's important to recognize that individually as well, we have needs, and those needs to be looked at on an individual basis. So the support groups in Rwanda, actually, they are there, but you have to find a cohort of people who have been in the same suffering, those who have been raped, those who are born from the genocide, the perpetrators, or those kids who are born after the genocide. So you can't put all genocide survivors in one support group and expect to have a good result. So individual support and group support, yes, we do, and we need a different set of interventions. Though we still need a lot of work to do. We still have a lot of work to do. We haven't reached to everyone, and you have people who are not even ready to talk about what happened to them. We have people who are not ready for support. So it's a work in progress, and also the resources are not meeting the needs. So we are always needing more resources to overcome everything we have to go through. It's a brief, but that's what I can say.
And to complicate matters, you know that not every crime or every trauma creates the same result in everyone who experienced it. I've written a great deal about the heterogeneity of reactions among survivors. Chantal in particular, you might want to take a look at it. Actually, and I, for many years, always thought of simply what life is like after, rather than what diagnosis can I put on this, that, and the other. So Grace, who participated in our Rwanda I webinar, is kindly translating the Danieli inventory for multi-generational legacies of trauma, the only inventory that is scientifically based, is the gold measure for assessing intergenerational legacies of trauma. Grace is translating it now to Kinyarwanda. It is translated to many other languages and has been studied in many other places. But I think it would be very important that it is translated to Kinyarwanda, and perhaps all of us can get together and learn how that can help with the complexity of understanding which we touched upon today. So Chantal, I'm sure you'd be interested in participating. I'm assuming because you have a similar spirit to me.
Yes.
And all of the organizations you mentioned, please, you're totally welcome.
And Dr. Danieli,
Yes, dear.
there is a question from Jacqueline.
Yes, I see that.
Oh, did you notice it? So
I'm seeing, Jacqueline is asking, may I read it out loud? Can the panelists provide some guidance what to do and not to do to mental health experts who may be on this webinar and are interested in contributing, providing support in the area of mental health in Rwanda? And I know, Chantal, that you are very eager to answer it, so go ahead. But I want the other psychology students, Joseph and and Rachel, to take a try at this too. And Kajette, you might come up with some idea also, please. Chantal, go ahead.
Yes, it's a complex situation, what to do and not what to do. There are some cultural sensitivities that people may not appreciate, for example. I can give an example. I have a genocide survivor. She's an old woman living in Montreal. So when she has shared with me that she went to see a counselor because all her children have been killed. So she's an older woman. She told me that she went to see a Quebecois counselor who suggested that she should get a puppy because she feels lonely. So because in Rwandan culture, back in the days, dogs were not respected as they are now. So for her, it was an insult. She lost her children in the genocide, and now you're telling her to get a puppy so she can feel good. So she took it as an insult. So that's the cultural sensitivity I'm talking about. But the international experts who wants to help, when they come to Rwanda, they know, they understand the sensitivity, they try to be cultural sensitive so they can practice here. We do have many of them practicing here, and really there's no checklist of what they should do, what they should not do. It's just an individual journey to come here and learn, or even to come and take time off at work and come and support. There are so many NGOs who will receive them with a big heart to, because we need help for everyone. Anyone who can contribute, really, they are welcome to contribute. Because the need in mental health here, it's huge. Sometimes the mental health community, they just get swamped and they're trying to dive in, but the need is very huge. So Jacqueline, I know you do same thing that we do, but we are willing to coach and actually work with the experts who would like to come and contribute to Rwanda. But there's no checklist as it is now. But there are things which are very sensitive.
Well, if it were a checklist, Joseph, what would you tell people not to do? Kajet, Rachel, what would you tell people not to do when they want to help?
You need to unmute.
Unmute, everybody, please unmute. Kajet, please. What would you tell people not to do? Okay, answer when it comes up. Joseph, what would you tell people not to do?
Thank you very much for this question. Let us come back to Mudahogora.
I don't hear Joseph. Go ahead.
Thank you very much. I think you understand me well. Right now, I said, let us come back to what Mudahogora said. For some who need support, especially psychological support. I want to tell her that we are there for all. We are there to support everyone who needs it. Because what you are doing right now is to give support to someone who needs it. Psychological support is needed to everyone. Even in Rwanda, they don't understand what is how to find a psychologist to help him or her for their problem, for their mental health problem, but they need it. What I can tell is that we are here. If they need support, especially psychological support, we are here. That's just can call us and we will give our help as we want, as we can do. What we have, we will give to anyone who needs it. I think you can come back to the question. The last question you asked.
No, I think you answered it. You didn't answer what not to do, but you said we are here to help. When
yes, we are here to help.
Which is just wonderful, which is what Chantal also said. Kajet, you seem to have a thought.
What I think is that what to do is, first of all, like as the children born after the 1994 genocide against the Tutsi, we need to know the truth. What to do is tell us the truth to the fellow, to the people participating in this who know the truth about the 1994 genocide against the Tutsi. Please tell us the truth. Let's not just commemorate for the sake of just commemorating. For instance, if we go to the genocide memorial site at a certain place, we just be going with flowers, lay flowers to the unmet relatives, as I mentioned. But again, we don't know their names. We don't know what they used to like. We don't know their likes and dislikes. We don't know what they used to do. And yet, as I said, we want to make you proud. We live in your legacy. But again, for us to live in their legacy, we want to know them. One of the things that the genocide perpetrators were like aiming at was to just kill all the Tutsis, such that even the children who were born after, we never know how their relatives look like, or they will just show them pictures. Some of us, for instance, on my behalf, I don't even know a single picture of my relatives. So like my mom hasn't had that chance of having that single picture of any relative. So for us to just commemorate them and love them to the bits and make sure that we make them proud, we need to know them. We need to know what they used to like, what they just want to just achieve, so that we can step in their footprints and make them proud. Really, we want to know the truth. What not to do is don't tell us the lies. That's why we want, just personally, I want to write the very own story, the Rwandan stories, so that not another person from, I don't know from where, to just come and tell the Rwandan story. So don't tell us the lie. What not to do is do not force like someone who is dealing with a lot to just force him or her to just tell you a lot. Like for instance, our parents, they have done a lot. We know that we are still asking them to do a lot, to tell us a lot, but still they've done a lot to just make us these beautiful girls and boys out there. But again, we still want a lot from them. So if you really want to help, like, don't put any pressure on them. Like, if you really want to help that child who was born after the genocide, that child who is a survivor of the genocide, that child who was born from the rape, that mother or father, that person who survived, please do not put any pressure on them. Just handle them with kindness, with humbleness, and easily they can maybe end up talking. But again, don't pressure them into talking until they are on that stage of expressing themselves, of talking about what happened to them. Since some of us are just here, seated here, and knowing nothing about our identity, but slow by slow, we get on learning more and more. And that's why we ask the world to just be patient with us, be patient with our brothers and sisters who survived, who passed through a lot. They really passed through a lot, so we don't need to pressure them. We need to be patient with them. And again, to all those like child born after, please tell them the truth. They need to know the truth, such that they will never allow any kind of same incident to happen anywhere at all. Thank you so much.
Thank you. A great deal of wisdom. A great deal of wisdom from the young here. Rachel, I thought you wanted to say something.
Regarding what Jacqueline said? Yeah, a little bit.
Just a little bit, because we are over time, but go ahead.
Yeah, thank you very much, Jacqueline, for the question. The thing that I can just recommend as a guidance is to just refer to what, like, the key behaviors of clinical psychologists. That's really a good example. In their key behaviors, there is not judgment. You have to be non-judgmental. Just avoid judging people. Just speak honestly. Yeah, and carry out empathic listening. Yeah, be with people, just receive them with that kind of love and honesty. That will help them and will build their mental health and in a tremendous way. Thank you.
Thank you. Might I, Console is someone who shared openly about my story. I don't see the rest of what you wrote. Wait.
You want me to read it for you?
Would you please?
Yes, Console says that as someone who shared openly about my story about rape during the genocide, many of my fellow survivors confided in me their personal experiences. How would advise me to do? That's a question of
That is a big dilemma, isn't it? Because it's not only psychologists.
yes, I understand where she comes from. So, Sister Console, what I can advise is that good listening, as Rachel was sharing, you just be there for them, have your physical presence. But if you feel that someone is having significant symptoms, let's say they have suicidal thoughts, they are self-harming, or they can't sleep, they're lacking appetite, like those physical symptoms, you can gently introduce the fact that that particular situation is beyond what you can help with, but you can help them to find a professional who can help with it. But because they trust you and they know you understand them, you can just be a good listener. Be there, be present, be just active listening. And then if you feel it's getting to the point where it's beyond what you can do by just listening, and try not to give advice, because sometimes we try to quick saying, oh, I've been using this and that worked for me. So yeah, that goes case by case. So it's just your good judgment to say, oh, this, I think it's beyond just talking and sharing. It's more than a physical symptoms or an illness which may lead to something more complex. So you can then gently introduce the fact that, oh, I know a friend who have helped other people like us, who can help you as well. And you can tap in with me. I can share with you some resources depending of where the person is. Foundation Rwanda, we have counselors actually who helps, especially those the survivors who have been raped, and they have been using support groups. And in those support groups, they made progress because they felt that I'm not alone in this situation. So I can share with others, this thing happened to others. So they actually ended up building relationships so they can even see each other and socialize outside the support groups. So the support groups have been helping, and they exist in the entire country. Southern province, Eastern, Northern, Western, Central. So we have those resources, but I know you've been a key to-go-to person for many Rwandans, especially young Rwandan women who went through the same thing you went through, Console. So please be that bridge, be that vessel that they can use, lean on, but also you can pass on to others. And I can volunteer to work with you so you don't have compassion fatigue or vicarious trauma.
Right.
I would also like to add that the International Center for the Study, Prevention, and Treatment of MultiGenerational Legacies of Trauma has the most up-to-date, the richest library on this topic, and anything related to multi-generational legacies in every field, not only in psychology. Chantal's article, I immediately found it there when she wrote me, of course. And I would like you to know that this is freely available to everyone. So there is a lot there. Yes, support groups have been extremely helpful to Holocaust survivors, to survivors of all kinds. But again, every quote solution is more complex than just the word. So please know that. Also remember that psychology is not the only route. In many ways, clergy, social leaders, journalists, we have one here. Psychoeducation was mentioned by Rachel. Teachers, social institutions, all of these fields are dedicated to study different ways that people do adapt to trauma and what needs to be done to help them. So while I, as a psychologist, I'm extremely proud of the focus, we want to remember the rest too, because part of, for example, support group for survivors of rape or for children who were born into rape, no matter how much work we do inside the group, there's still the society we have to educate. And that's a bigger challenge. And it would be good to attend to that too. There are other questions. It's already 2:45. We will have more webinars. Clearly, this cannot be only number 2. So if you and the panelists and the participants, please, when you have an idea for a webinar, just let's do it together so we can teach more and more and more. And I told this in the rehearsal. In 2001, we had a, was it 2001? Yeah, my God, it was 2001. We had we had a meeting of all genocide survivors in Rwanda at the invitation of Ibuka. I think we should plan for another one. Doesn't have to be very quick. We must wait for COVID to let us be safe, because there's so much that's not safe in what we do. But I think there's so much richness. And in so many ways, Rwanda can be and is a beacon of leadership. Not only because you built fantastic buildings since the genocide, but because you recognized the power of humanity. That is the most important resource of Rwanda. And,
Yes,
and so let's keep cherishing that and recognize that around the world, that it is people that we cherish and human life that we cherish. I can't say goodbye to you. This is like tearing my heart. And Joseph, I don't know if you read the chat. And a gentleman by the name of Joseph said that he's sure that God is with you. I'm sort of sure too. And I hope you stay with us too. So I don't have enough thanks for you. But the biggest thank is we work together in the future.
and we thank you, Dr. Daniele. If it wasn't you, we wouldn't be here.
And we have to make sure that many more will be. Thank you, dear. I'm very happy to take that, to continue with that. And Rachel, you say hello to your mom again.
I'll do that. Thank you very much.
And Kajette, you keep writing, but keep writing to me too.
Thank you.
And Joseph, you continue to be like you. You're wonderful. And Chantal, we are going to work hard together. All of you. So,
Thank you.
thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you so much,
to all the
Doctor.
participants. Thanks to all.
And Lobby, bye. And thank you.
Thank you.